feel like this is a delicious transition now to one of the characters that I think is long overdue for us to discuss, who is Nami, who has a
Yes.
very complex parental relationship. And
Mhm.
something that I want to talk about with Nami, and I think it translates to Arlong's character as well, is sort of not only was she orphaned at a very young age and had a surrogate parent, and having that relationship and also resisting that relationship and then coming all the way for full circle in the episodes that we've watched, these last two episodes, but also sort of how the character internalizes their circumstances and what that does to a person. So in Nami's case, for example, number one, she's born without parents. And obviously at some point she resists Belmare and says, "You're not my real mother." Obviously
Mm.
that big blow up and everything. But her circumstances are that she lives in a village that is poor to begin with, but then is taken over by Arlong and this very evil force, and has to sort of lie and cheat her way out of her circumstance. And the way that she does that is to join them, right? And the way that I think this also translates to Arlong's character is that he's coming from a background of generational trauma that I think he has internalized as being subjugated, as being enslaved, and now, and instead of improving the situation, he approaches it as a villain does. We have to swap the roles now, right? Instead of saying, "Hey, maybe we can all figure this out," no, the way to fix this is for us to do to you what you did to us.
Yeah. The oppressed becomes the oppressor.
And
Right.
so now back to Nami, I feel like there is an element of that drives her character of I was wronged, so I have no qualms wronging others to achieve my goals. But sort of the motivations of Nami are clouded at the beginning. She's been there from episode one, but we're just now finding out in these last two episodes what she's all about and what drives her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she's even got a heaping cart full of guilt that her sister doesn't. She said, I mean, life is so much different for children that are adopted in the sense of the conscious structures they have to deal with as they develop. Neither good nor bad. Both of my kids are adopted. We made sure they knew it as soon as they could speak words because we knew the world was going to make them know it. So we better make them know it and just not act like it's an issue. And but notice, make them aware that the world would. But kids are going to be kids. And when she throws that little fit, that's completely believable. I stole the damn book because we're poor. I hate being poor. And then when Mama argues back, then it's just weaponized language. That's when it all comes out. No, you're not my real sister. All that stuff, they just know it hurts. That's why they say it. They're just fighting and they know it hurts. But even though she can say to herself, "Yeah, I was just weaponizing my language," she can never forget that she said it. And she can never forget that her mom passed shortly thereafter protecting her. I mean, it's it's just unsolvable. And yeah.
And I feel like she compensates by taking on all of the pain for herself now. Because she did that, because her mother died protecting her, because she was in the circumstance, what she protected Nojiko in the only way she knew how, which was to just take on all of that pain herself, not telling Nojiko a word, doing it the most painful way possible, not telling anyone in Cocoa Village, just saying, "I'm going to take this on. I'm capable, and I have the grit. I can take it." And we watch a very interesting part of her life story, which is when she can't take it anymore, and then resorts to self-mutilation, which it's that episode 7, I guess, second to last episode, got real dark for me. I feel like, emotionally, we and even Luffy, like happy-go-lucky, always smiling, he's very quiet throughout the whole episode. It's a very sort of reckoning episode for everyone, I feel like.
That scene was whack in the anime. I mean,
Yeah.
in the anime, she's sitting there stabbing her arm. Like, what the hell's going on? It's like unbelievable.
It's an interesting turn for her because I feel like she does take everything on and she internalizes everything. She builds this wall around herself and does not let anyone in. And she takes everything and internalizes it. And you can see it in her face. She will react when she's away from people, like when she walks away from Luffy and the rest of them and he says, we're your crew. And she's like, I was never part of your crew. I told you to leave, whatever she says.
Yeah,
And she
yeah.
turns around and her face just like drops.
Mm.
But that moment where she's stabbing the ink that is embedded into her skin, that is now internal inside of her. And she is now finally trying to do something to get it out. And then you see the blood dripping out. And that's her turn. That's her moment where she's like, okay,
yep,
here we go. All right, we got to move past this, and I can't do it by myself.
That's a pretty grand line story. I mean, in other words, to take on the suffering of an entire culture, move out to sea and try to save it and do whatever you have to do to come back. It's interesting because everybody that Luffy has invited to be on his crew is someone who's a little different than they presented originally, right? And even though it looks like they may have deceived him or they may be different, Luffy's able to see through that. Or it could be that Luffy is able to do things that actually transform them more into those people by believing in them, by trusting them, that kind of stuff.
Well, that was one of the cool things about I think that was a kind of character defining moment where Luffy talks to Zoro about that. And then he explains that, well, how do you because Zoro was convinced that she's not one of us. She's not part of the crew. How do you know? Why is it that you're so sure? And then he looks at him and tells him the same reason I knew that you were me when I took you off that cross. It's like, and then he had to shut up and he looks over at him like, yeah, that's true. It's like, Luffy has this innocence about him. And that's one of the things, and they totally cast Luffy like totally perfectly, in my opinion, because that actor, he encapsulates the childlike innocence that Luffy has, but it's not ignorant. It may be, it seems naive, but it's not. He really understands the heart of people. That he can really see through the mystique that people try to present. That each of the crew members try to present, and he can see them as they are. Even with Oolong, is it Oolong? The
Arlong.
Or
Usopp.
Usopp, I'm sorry.
Usopp?
Yes, with Usopp, and I'm probably gonna get flack for that. But with Usopp, I'm so bad with names, so forgive me.
We're good in the comments.
But yes, with Usopp, I mean, Usopp, he parades himself as this grand pirate, and he's done all of these great things. And I mean, he's just obviously, well, to us, he's a pretender, but he says all of these things, and then Luffy just joins in with him. It's like, oh wow,
Damn.
Yep. Here's to Captain Usopp when he's at the end. At the end, he's like, you did it.
That was
where's that?
That was such a cool thing to do, because I mean, even in psychology, I've heard this before by other psychologists where they explain that if you really want to know a person is your friend or really somebody that you should even keep in your life, is somebody that not only celebrates with you with the things that you're, when you have your victories, but then they listen to you. They when you explain things, they don't try to trump, one up you. It's like, oh yeah, I already know that. This and that. They actually listen to you. It's a sign of a good friend. I'm taking in what you're saying and I'm processing what you're explaining, and then I break it down with you rather than try to one up your conversation or whatnot.
Love it.
Captain Luffy. Yep. And I do think that the casting of Iñaki was spot on.
Brilliant.
Just like Emily Rudd, probably one of my favorite performers on the show, in that we see a lot of we've said internalizing a lot, but the performance that we see is a lot of suppressing what she's actually feeling. You know, I think it's an easy sort of trap to fall into, performing something like a live action anime adaptation to be big and cartoony and leave everything out, to give that layer of subtlety to the character who does have layers. And I think from the manga and even the anime, we get it a little bit, but to see that on a human level, I think she performs it very well. To see like a facade, like we're saying, that all the characters present themselves as one thing, but are actually another, and Luffy is seeing exactly through to that.
And it makes the second viewing that much more enjoyable, because now you see everything that she's hiding, right? Which is really cool.
Yeah, you see those subtle moments, which is really fabulous.
So anything else about Nami that we want to talk about at the moment? We can come back to her later.
Well, I think everybody already explained about Nami, and it's the same for me. I love her because so when I was growing up and when I was watching shonen anime, so shoujo anime is a total different thing. I love shoujo genre in general, but like in shonen anime, it's when they write a female character, they either make them tomboy or either make them like very feminine with no layer to it. Naruto is a big example for that. But so when I started watching One Piece, like newer shonen animes are like different. They are trying to incorporating good female characters now. But when I was watching One Piece and I started reading the manga, I saw how layered Nami is as a character. She is smart. She's very tricky. She's empathetic. She's friendly. At the same time, she is not like hiding her femininity, which I think Emily Rudd was able to portray it so well in the live action. Especially when I don't think it was in the manga or anime, but like she was flirting with the Navy officers to like, get away with it. And that I think was a really good touch for the live adaptation. And I don't think it was in the anime at all, but yeah. So yeah, overall, and it is so hard to like explain such a layered character in a live adaptation, and who is so loved by everyone. And yeah, I teared up when watching the show. And Arlong Park is the arc when I finally decided I'm gonna keep watching One Piece. So yeah. Nami is amazing.
I want to agree with everything you've said about her, and letting her flirt in her character is not unlike what they did with Sanji, letting Sanji be flirtatious. Flirting is a part of adult life. And I'll go as far as to say flirting is a way a lot of adults diffuse sexual tension, right? We don't like to talk about it that way, but a look, a compliment, and you move on with your life. And what do you know? Another day, another time, another life. But in this one, I got to go home, right? That's just adult life. And flirtation is a device by which sophisticated cultures manage it. And we get to see it going on in these characters and stuff we rarely get to see in American television ever, because it's all about the seduction and the consumption, right? It's not about the flirtation and the enjoying the fire. You know, the American thing is, oh, don't go do that, man. You're going to get burnt. It's like, well, learn how to dance, and then maybe you can play with fire. I mean, you know, learn how to be in space, be nice, and go home. I just, these are things we don't talk about consciously, man. And because we don't talk about it consciously, we don't have training for young men. I'll be straight up. They don't learn how to flirt.
You guys have thoroughly impressed me. I had no clue this was going to be such a philosophical
Flirtation 101.
Do you know, Scott?
I should probably be taking notes. Like this is, it's kind of very interesting the way you have on this, but it's good because I'm all of the things that you're explaining, I'm seeing, and I'm comparing it to other animes that I've either been in. Maisha was explaining how the female tropes are in a lot of the other types of anime gendered more so to the female audience, and I go back to the Sacrificial Princess because it is catered to the female audience, and so I tell ladies that I meet, I'm like, you should go home and check this out, you know, because her character is like that. Like she comes off like this, like a lot of the tropes where she's just kind of an airhead almost, whatever. But then you find out there are all of these other layers to why she's the way she is. And I'm like you, it's like that's really cool because I know I've been an anime head a long time, and so I know how this stuff used to be. And it's like there's just no depth to the character, and you want to see that, you know. And it's a bunch of stuff you guys are saying that are pulling me in different directions, but I'm trying to stay here. But yeah, even something Scott said earlier about the fathers and all, and I was and how you did with your own children, how you told them, you know, exactly who they were, or at least who, you know, who they are to you all, and you know, so they understood. I mean, that's what made Superman so great in the Zack Snyder Superman, you know, the Man of Steel. I thought that was one of the interesting parts about that's those scenes, because it never explored with that character. They never explored the relationship that Paul Kent and Clark had. When he pulls him to the side and he tells him who he is, you know, and how he found him. I mean, it was all of Kevin Costner's scenes in that movie, even in Heavy Superman. I mean, they were tearjerkers for me. So, you know, it's a lot of things you guys are pulling me through. And so I'm like, wow, this is really interesting.
So we're thrilled to have you here.
I will fully admit I go back and watch these episodes sometimes because Scott says something and I'm like, I need to listen to this again when we're not having the conversation by myself, because I'm going to learn something from it.
Oh, please.
Later.
It's a big WTF sometimes, I'm sure.
Sometimes.
But
other times.
This is so perfect, Dark Loops, man, because what I love about the human condition is our ability to sit around and do this. And I don't see enough of this. I see short stuff. I see a lot of judgment. I see a lot of canceling, which is binary behavior. And I want to be in a room with a bunch of people that want to have a glass of wine and just talk and talk and talk. We ain't getting paid. You know what I'm saying? We're just being human. And so I appreciate everything you guys are saying. This is a great conversation.
Well, that's how you think, right? I mean, civil discourse, it's like, you know, time to...
how you grow. Yep.
Right. That's how you think. Grow,
that icky discourse.
Yes.
That icky discourse. Yep.
Grow through the icky
by the way,
discourse.
Maisha, the female characters in Jujutsu Kaisen are fantastic.
Oh yeah, Jujutsu Kaisen is one of those newer shonen anime, and I love Jujutsu Kaisen knows how to write female characters. And there is also, I don't know if I should talk about it here, but like there is this one character, Nobara, and there's this dialogue of her. She says that I am a woman and I can be feminine and I can be still a badass. I don't have to be like a man to be a badass. And that's one of my favorite lines from a like female manga character. So yeah, Jujutsu Kaisen is great.
I think that's so terribly important.
What I love about Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a bad man to be a good woman.
Yep.
Right.
You don't have to do that. Because bad men are bad men. That's
I think it's Jack Nicholson's character, and is as good as it gets when someone asks him how do you write women, and he says, I write men and I remove logic, rationality, or something like that. It's awful.
Jack.
And
terrible.
So, I mean, he's supposed to be a reprehensible character there.
Yes, because anger and that is not is not irrational.
Also, highly recommend Chainsaw Man for well-written, complex, layered women.
Oh my god!
I mean, going even beyond like sexuality, flirtation, manipulation, seduction, all present and in very gripping ways that are not just boys like sexy women. It like you have to read into these characters, and I've watched it a couple times already, and I still am like I need to understand this better.
Even
it
Robin
is beyond me. What's that?
Even Robin, is that her name?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
In One Piece. Yeah. She's drawn very. I don't want to say sexy. It's not sexy. Yeah, exactly. She's that part of femininity, and she's the smartest person on the boat half the time. She's just doing her thing. She's not being Nami. This is the thing about good writing, is you got to let people just be themselves. And bad writing is when you just make everybody say what you want them to say, and you can hear the writer in the character. You don't hear characters. You hear the writer trying to persuade you to believe the world's a certain way. And yeah, for me, the people that do the best job of letting people be people are the Cohen brothers. They just, every movie they make, they just let everybody be dumb, everybody be smart. It's just the best. But man, that's the skill writing, is just letting people be people. Yeah.
And Oda's come under fire for the way he draws women. They're like an X with two big circles, tiny little waist, big old boobs. But I'm glad that we're able to sort of like understand that that's a thing, and then see beyond that to the characters that he's also written.
I don't think Kristen's
I'm not giving you
very
much credit for doing that.
Here's the thing: I don't watch a lot of anime. I don't, admittedly, and I have seen just a few episodes of the anime of One Piece, and I have to say the women are drawn fine compared to some of the women out. Well, some of the women out there in some of this anime, it's like it's so overt and like things like Food Wars, or where like all of a sudden they're like, oh, their clothes are off. It's so like mind-boggling that like it's drawn that way. So I think I've only seen a few characters, a few women, so I can't really speak to the rest of the anime, but from what I have seen so far, I think the women are drawn fine.
Well,
there you go.
I have encountered people when I told them, hey, you probably should try One Piece sometime, like, and their argument against it is like, oh, I don't like how Oda draws women. I think that's very objectifying. That's why I don't watch it. And I agree, like it sometimes gets a bit boring that like he draws like women just in a similar way all the time, but at the same time his characters are layered, and that's not the only thing he focuses on. His character, he draws in a way, it's fine, but like all of his female character has some kind of story, has some kind of contribution to the story, and they're very freaking strong compared to a lot of popular shonen anime out there. But yeah, some people just wants to go with that one.
Aisha, I'm interested to know, are those people that are saying that, are they are these American women, or are they from other countries?
Well, I grew up, and so I came to America last August. So before that, I was in my country. So I'm from Bangladesh. So most of the encounters that I had were people from my country. So I cannot really talk about people because I haven't, like, except for Scott, I don't think I told anyone to watch One Piece the anime right now because it's very long. So I don't really recommend to everyone.
Right. Well, I asked that question because, so like this is something I predicted a long time ago. I've been telling people this, and it's one of the things that I'm really surprised. You just don't know how I'm surprised we're having this conversation. Like, there are so many. I was telling other people that work in anime, I was like, watch and see. And anime is going to take over everything. In terms of it's going to be the new standard in terms of animation and how things are done cartoon wise, and it has happened. And the reason why is because of all of the things that we're talking about, all of the nuances, all of the things. This is what American comics used to be. I am a comic fan, a classic comic fan. Like the characters were drawn the way we're talking about. The men had these they had muscles in places, and so they weren't even real. It's like bodybuilders don't look good. And the women are drawn voluptuously and all these things. And it's like, so there was no room to say, well, they're objectifying one or the other. They're all objectified in that regard. But at the same time, there were all of these nuances. There weren't all of the agendas, political agendas, and everything put into all of the characters. And I was telling people, I said, if they don't stop this stuff and pay attention to what the Japanese are doing in the animation, they're just letting the characters be the characters, and they're playing it out in a very realistic sense. And I'm like, that is what we used to do as America. And it's like, I'm telling you, it's going to change. And they thought that I was just saying exactly what you guys have said. Oh, well, you're just saying that. And I've been told that.
No, man.
I like respect. I mean, you just think this because they're showing more TNA. And I'm just saying the way it was said. That's, you want to see more of that. I'm like, no, I'm telling you, this is good. They're giving the people what they want. They want nuanced characters that, they look great, but they also have this depth. And it's not what you think it should be or what you think it should be. It's the way life really is in many ways.
1998.
And that's a yes.
1998, Miyazaki's Princess Mononoke drops in the US, and it changes screenwriting. It is I think it's the best screenplay ever written. I'll defend that in another podcast if you like. Nobody is right. Nobody is wrong. Everybody's just living. And that's Miyazaki's point. Live. And it's like, damn, I watched that movie 3 times in 2 days. I rented it VHS, man. I'm that old. It's like, what? Watch it again. What? And then you saw it start to happen, particularly in the United States with Avatar: The Last Airbender. You started seeing them use that style and then create these layered characters. And then Korra knocked it out of the park, as far as I'm concerned. Castlevania's doing it now, y'all. I don't know if you watch Castlevania, but damn, is that a good show?
So good.
It's so good. And they're great characters, man. I mean, they all striving for power of Empire Wars. It's fantastic.
Man, when they say, look, just since you brought it up, when those characters came into the church in that first season, and I mean, all of the demons came into the church, and they were like, he was like, how do you come into the house of God this way? And that thing looked at him and said, God is not here. I was like, oh man.
Goosebumps.
Yeah, I was like,
damn, that show is good.
Like, this is that just all bets were off then. Those were off.
All bets off. Next level. Fantastic voice actors, fantastic animators, great screenplay, absolutely.
And so let's
where are we, Rio?
Continue. Yes, I'm going to get us back on track. And the segue is compelling voices, and I think that Ray, you were talking about talking around teeth, and a character that has to talk around his teeth. Arlong. Arlong is our topic now.
Dude, that was an amazing segue, man. That was like
great
expert
job.
360. Got the landing. 10s all around. That was awesome.
And we've arrived, y'all. And you just got here.
There you go.
And so Arlong, he's we talked about sort of these binary characters and polarizing characters. Almost 100% Arlong's a bad dude, right? But it's not going to be all that interesting to just talk about how bad of a dude he is and how he betrayed Nami. A fisherman always keeps his promises, and obviously he doesn't. He goes around her back and very manipulatively gets Nizami in the right place at the right time to take all of her cash that she's been saving up, and just can't handle that Nami is trying to get out from under his fishy little thumb. But at the same time, I think that we definitely are not missing the fact that Arlong and the Fishman crew and Arlong Park is a proxy for minorities and the subjugation of such communities, right? And what can happen and what sort of emotions and compel people and characters to commit these violent and atrocious acts against whoever they can. I'm struggling to focus with Coconut in your
I know.
frame.
I'm sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, our dog Coconut.
Sorry, she
is Coconut shucking drinks, man? I mean,
she's making her first appearance. This little dog has been very good for the past 3 episodes, but she is all about trying to get on screen. So say hello, Coconut. Okay, thank you very much. Now go lay down. Lay down, please.
Sweetie.
Coconut, we're going back to Cocoa Village and Arlong Park.
Yes.
So Arlong, first of all, just completely aside from the character and the sort of whole backstory, I think very compelling performance from McKinley Belcher III. With all of that makeup to sort of like be able to work around that. I know how hard that is to sort of do.
Yes, just so imposing.
Just larger than life. I kept looking at his face and being like, how are all of these features moving correctly? But anyway, let's talk about Arlong.
You could hear
Before
his.
just
Go ahead.
so
Go ahead. Go
oh
ahead.
sorry, before
No, go
we
ahead.
get into Arlong, the character itself, and you had just touched on this, so I think this is the time to bring it up. I just want to shout out the FX makeup artists for
Yeah.
all of the fishmen. They are just phenomenal.
Mhm.
They
it's
all
so
are
anime
very,
irrelevant.
very
It's so
specific
referenced.
characters. Like
Mhm.
they all look fabulous. They all look equally grotesque and beautiful at the same time.
Yes.
And they all, I don't know, they just very good job. I'm so
Totally
impressed.
worked.
So impressed. Yes.
The whole time I'm listening to Arlong talk, I'm thinking, damn, where is the microphone?
Yes.
Because you're so, I can't even, growl. I can't get my voice to vibrate like that. Like he can, but like, is the mic in his throat? I mean, the voice was so deep and resonant and so, I guess I'm going to use the word guttural because you could feel his throat in the words he was using.
His
It was
gills.
really well done.
It's
Exactly.
gills, yeah.
Yeah.
It was reminiscent to Michael Dorn's Worf in Star Trek. For any Trekkies,
Yeah.
the Next Generation. He was. I mean, I was looking at him trying to figure out. I'm like, man, is it? I'd seen McKinley play other characters, and he's always good in whatever he's in.
Mhm.
But that character, he really got lost in. Like he was, I felt where he was coming from. Like I'm like, I could totally see why he would end up the way he was. And this is it's not like something that we haven't heard in real life. I mean, there are other people often are reactive, to what it is they've been through and their struggles. And it's like, okay, well, this happened to XYZ happened to me, and the rest of this is what should happen to society. And so, yeah, I was. It made him it made it a little easier to. He wasn't just a standard villain. He's easier to have compassion for why they were doing what they were doing. It's just like, well, it's a messed up way of going about it, but yeah, I could totally see why you would, come to this conclusion. You know what I mean? And so, he played that character superbly. Yeah, he looked like a real fish man. And so when Kristen said that, I was like, yeah, I was totally amazed at what he did with all of them, because some of them were really disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta say they did play up, I think, a little bit more the sort of racial aspect of it, I think, in the live action, and I think that was correct.
Yes.
It's alluded to in the manga and anime, but I don't think to a degree that we were able to sort of really feel it. And with the live action, it's right there in your face.
Well, it's very on the nose and very in the zeitgeist of American the pop culture right now, with things like Lovecraft Country being out in the last few years, and so touching on that, I think was smart, and making it a little more prevalent than it is in the manga or in the anime, because it is a very relevant topic. It's a very hot button topic, and it's an important one as well. And maybe they're not going about it the right way, and how they are trying to rectify a situation. But you understand the pain of the people, and you understand, you understand the feelings, and you can empathize with why they want to go about it the way they're going about it.
That was the second brilliant speed up they did in the story, because that makes him a layered character.
Right.
If you never get a second season or third season of One Piece to see what comes later to explain him, you don't get that layer in his character. The second speed up was Garp, having that interaction with Luffy that early in their relationship in the show, because you don't get that, what I'm gonna call magic, in episode 8 if Garp isn't there and you're learning who Luffy is in relation to his grandfather. So those two speed ups were brilliant. I can guarantee you they consciously discussed them in the writing room. So we got to bring Garp in earlier. We got to make Arlong a little more direct in his backstory, so that there are no simple characters in this story except some of the side characters. Right.
And this is why we need writers in writers' rooms and not AI writing the scripts. Because you won't get these layers. You won't get the layers, and you won't get you're never going to get these speed ups. You're never going to get that in there.
No.
Yeah.
And
So
to get all the contradictions just right. I mean, all the contradictions just right is so hard. I'm never going to say AI can't do it. And that's not because I love AI. It's just because AI is nothing but a pattern detector. And
It's
a good story
iterative.
has patterns in it.
Mhm.
And if an AI can detect the pattern,
then
throw a little
there it
noise
is,
in
yeah.
the equations and you get something similar. That's all I'm saying. I don't want AI to do it. And yeah.
Yep.
Ask a question. I've heard Lovecraft Country referenced several times during this podcast. Did I miss the Lovecraft Country podcast?
Dude, I did that like live when it was showing on HBO
Okay.
in the fall of 20 or something like that.
It was
so
yeah.
thoroughly invested in the watching of that show. So yes, I mean, please don't. I mean, you can call me anytime, Scott. Okay.
All right. Look at that. You're making my day, my
You heard
week.
it right here.
Well, what the One Piece crew is going to have to figure out off camera later is the future of the One Piece crew. We know we got a gig coming up at CasaCon in December. I'll talk about it at the end. We'll probably have actually submitted panel proposals for a couple of cons for this crew to go talk about One Piece.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because you know what? You talk about One Piece, you talk about real wildlife. You talk about a lot of other shows and you're talking about what a writer wants you to believe. And not interesting. Not interesting at all. That's why I do the panels on deathmatch stories anymore. Because I don't want to save the world, man. I mean, it's not there to be saved. It's wild. It's the grand line. It's going to do what it does. And that's a story I want to hear. So yes, we will talk more about what we might do in the future. For example, because we're so far off course here, man. I've been watching. I love A24. I love A24.
They're great.
So I love The Witch. I love Hereditary. And the second time, recently I just watched it again, and I went on Google Scholar, which is where people are going to write, professors are going to write papers, and I typed in hereditary feminism. Because there's a reading of Hereditary that makes it a feminist text. It's a brutal feminist text. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. That's all stuff that the One Piece crew can do later on if you guys want to, because I think A24 is kicking it out of the park. But what I found was the writer hated it because it considered it anti-feminist. And I thought it was nothing but pro-feminist, brutally violent, but none of it. Blah, blah, blah. Totally, of course. I'm sorry. I'm going to go back and take a nap.
If you're still with us, if you've followed so far, however long we are into the episode, let us know if there's particular media that you'd like the One Piece crew to check out. Dark Loops Productions. I mean, Scott will take it under consideration, and we may be as a crew following him into another adventure.
Definitely the Grand Line.
For now, I gotta bring us to shore with our destination. I didn't even do the recap of the episodes, but we all know what's happening. We left the Gecko Islands. We went to Baratier. We got Sanji. We went to Konomi Islands to find Nami, and that's where we clashed with Arlong. The whole time, by the way, Garp's on Luffy's tail. And we didn't even talk about Buggy. He's the thing. He'll come back in the second season, I'm sure. Yeah. But we've been, I should say, Garpa has been trying to talk all 4 episodes about Garp, and I think now is the time. Honestly, I don't think I even need to introduce this. I'm just going to step back and say Garp.